At 4:47 on a cold Friday morning, a statement from Buckingham Palace starts bouncing across group chats, timelines, and reaction videos. It's short, it's blunt, it sounds official, and it hits that exact nerve that makes people stop scrolling. The feeling that history is happening without you. But here's the twist before we even talk about what it said. You need to understand why so many people believed it instantly. Because when it comes to the British monarchy, the scariest thing isn't the rumor. It's how plausible the rumor feels. Because the real system behind it is already mapped out, step by step, down to the wording, the phone calls, and even the tone of the broadcasters. And once you see how that machine works, you'll understand why the internet keeps announcing royal news before it's true and why the next real announcement, whenever it comes, will feel eerily familiar. But first, let's deal with the biggest question. That 4:47 Palace statement, was it real? The reason fake statements spread so fast is simple. They copy the vibe of real palace language, that careful, formal tone, the emotionally distant phrasing, the little details that sound like only insiders would know, and the timing matters too. Early morning drops feel more believable because people assume the palace wants to control the day's news cycle, and broadcasters are already in position. It feels like something that would happen, except when you check what credible sources actually reported and what the palace actually published. That specific end-of-life care statement isn't there. No verified posting on official palace channels. No matching alert from major wire services. No consistent reporting trail. So if that exact statement shows up on your feed, treat it like what it usually is, an internet-made breaking news. Costume, but tanned. This is where it gets more interesting. None of that means the public is crazy for believing it. It means the monarchy's real history with health, secrecy, and protocol makes people feel like anything could be true at any time. And to understand why, you have to go back to what we do know. In early February 2024, Buckingham Palace confirmed that King Charles III had been diagnosed with a form of cancer. They said it was discovered after doctors noticed a separate issue of concern. During treatment for benign enlarged prostate problems, they didn't specify what kind of cancer it was, and they made a point of saying it was not prostate cancer. The royal family plus 2 AP News plus 2, that announcement, was unusual in its openness. The palace even framed it as a way to reduce speculation and raise awareness. AP News, but even with that transparency, the public still didn't get the detail everyone always asks for. How serious is it? What's the timeline? And what does it mean for the future? And that gap between what people want to know and what the palace will confirm is where rumor culture thrives. Fast forward, and by December 2025, reporting said Charles delivered a personal update indicating his doctors could reduce his treatment schedule in 2026, with his care moving into a precautionary phase. Reuters +1. So we're not talking about a palace that's pretending nothing is happening. We're talking about a palace that gives select information, carefully measured, while the public tries to fill in the blanks. And the internet hates blanks. The internet turns blanks into stories. But the bigger reason these stories get traction is something most people don't realize until it's too late. The monarchy always plans for death in advance. Not because it's dramatic, because it's required. When Queen Elizabeth II died, the world learned the phrase London Bridge, a code name for an operation that had been prepared, rehearsed, and coordinated across government departments and broadcasters. The Guardian reported on how detailed these plans were long before her death, describing a machine built to deliver stability in the middle of national shock. The Guardian +1, that's the point of these plans. They're not morbid. They're a survival mechanism for a country that runs on continuity. So yes, there are plans for King Charles II, commonly referred to as Operation Menai Bridge, in public reporting and reference summaries. Wikipedia, and here's where it gets chilling. Because once you know a code name exists, you start imagining what it includes. People picture dark hallways, sealed envelopes, dramatic phone calls at 3 a.m. But the reality is even more intense because it's boring. It's checklists, it's scripts, it's procedures for media tone, it's security coordination, it's how quickly flags change. It's how government departments communicate. So the entire system moves in sync, and that's why fake statements feel real. They're basically fan fiction built on top of an actual blueprint. Now, let's talk about the part most people get wrong. When a monarch dies, the next monarch doesn't become king. After some ceremony, it happens instantly. Official sources are blunt about this. A new sovereign succeeds to the throne as soon as the predecessor dies, and then is proclaimed as soon as possible at an accession council, the Privy Council office. That means the public might still be processing the announcement while the legal reality has already shifted. And that's why the phrase, "the crown never dies," isn't just poetry. It's law-shaped reality. The accession council, explained by the Privy Council and also outlined in parliamentary research, exists to formally proclaim the death of the monarch and the accession of the successor, with signatures, declarations, and a carefully choreographed public proclamation. The Privy Council office +1, so while social media debates whether a rumor is real, the actual state mechanism when it's realms with frightening speed. And now you start to see the story hiding in plain sight, because the biggest drama isn't, will the palace announce it at 4:47? The drama is what happens in the minutes you don't see. Who gets called first? How do they prevent leaks? How do they balance family grief with constitutional necessity? Every royal death plan has two storylines happening at the same time. There's the public storyline, black ties, serious presenters, crowds outside gates, official statements. And there's the private one, a family being told that someone they love is slipping away, while aides gently push paperwork into motion because the state cannot pause. Even the language used historically shows this. Obsession with controlled messaging-coded phrases designed to prevent premature leaks, and carefully staged announcements meant to maintain calm. And this is where the human part becomes unavoidable. You realize the monarchy doesn't just transition power, it forces people to perform through loss. Think about the pressure on William in any serious health scare, not even death, just the fear of it. Because William isn't just a son watching a parent age and struggle, he's the designated continuity plan. And in moments like this, the headlines don't wait for facts. They go hunting for angles. They look at Camilla and ask what her role becomes. In a new reign, they look at William and Catherine and treat every facial expression like a strategy memo. And they look at Harry like he's a walking question mark. Even in ordinary times, anything involving those relationships gets interpreted as a power struggle. In a crisis, it gets amplified into a full-blown optics war. And that's why, whenever rumors about Charles spike online, you'll see the same cycle. First the breaking news posts, then the insiders claim posts. Then the sudden flood of what happens to videos about titles, homes, money, security, and family roles. And somewhere in the middle, people start confusing speculation with confirmed reporting. So let's be careful here. There's a huge difference between here's what the law and protocols say will happen, and here's what a random account claims is happening right now. One is structure, the other is bait. And speaking of bait, there's another reason these rumors always explode at the same time, because royal health scares don't just raise questions about succession, they reopen every controversy the palace wishes would stay buried. If you want to understand the mood around the monarchy heading into 2026, you can't ignore the things that keep dragging public trust down. Finances are one. A House of Commons library briefing notes the sovereign grant increased to £132.1 million in 2025-26, with expectations it could rise again. And debates about transparency keep resurfacing. And then there's the reputational shadow that won't go away. Scandals linked to Androon, the wider criticism that the institution protects itself first and explains later. The Guardian now combine that with a king dealing with cancer, and suddenly every conversation becomes existential. Not just who's next, but what is this institution even supposed to be now? That's why some commentary argues the public will expect even more transparency in 2026, especially after health announcements and financial headlines. The Guardian so, in a weird way. A fake palace statement doesn't just spread because people love drama. It spreads because people feel like the monarchy is always one carefully worded paragraph away from changing everything. And that brings us to the most important part, how not to get played. If you're watching royal news online, here are the red flags that a statement is probably fake or heavily distorted. If it shows up as a screenshot with no source link, and the account posting it refuses to say where it came from. Be suspicious if the wording feels emotionally cinematic, too sharp, too perfect. Too written for a narrator, be suspicious if it names specific doctors, exact minutes, dramatic quotes, and private conversations. And none of that appears in credible reporting. Be suspicious. Real palace communications are usually careful, restrained, and consistent. They don't read like a thriller trailer also. Watch for a simple trick. Fakes often blend real concepts with fake claims. They'll mention Windsor, or end-of-life care, or the family has been informed, because those phrases match what people imagine a royal plan would say. Then, they'll add invented specifics. To make it feel inside, the best defense is boring. Verify through official palace channels, and through reputable wire services and established outlets that correct mistakes fast, because when the real moment comes, whenever that is, the world will see an announcement that's confirmed across multiple credible sources, not just one viral screenshot. And ironically, it might still feel unbelievable. But because the monarchy is so tightly woven into continuity that the idea of a new reign always feels like it belongs to another era. So here's the takeaway that people miss when they get stuck on: is the rumor real? The real story isn't the rumor. The real story is that the system is designed so Britain never has a blank space. Where the crown used to be, a king can be alive in 1 minute and gone the next, and the legal reality changes instantly. The Accession Council is summoned, proclamations are prepared, and the country shifts without waiting for anyone's emotions to catch up. The Privy Council office +1, that's not coldness. That's the entire purpose of the institution. And it's exactly why the internet keeps trying to predict the moment. Because predicting it feels like stealing a little control from something that's built to be unstoppable. So if you see another 4:47 a.m. statement go viral, don't just ask, is this true? Ask, why did this feel true to so many people so fast? Because the answer tells you more about modern royal life than any rumor ever will. And now I want to hear your perspective. If you're watching from outside the UK, does this kind of transition feel distant? Or does it still hit like a global moment? And if you're in Britain, do these constant waves of rumor make you feel prepared or just exhausted? Drop where you're watching from, and what you think the monarchy's biggest test in 2026 really is: health, transparency, family drama, or something nobody's talking about yet. And here's what makes this whole thing even stranger. The palace doesn't have to say much for the world to go into full end-of-era mode, because the public isn't reacting to a sentence. They're reacting to a symbol. A monarch isn't a celebrity where bad news stays personal. A monarch is woven into passports, coins, anthems, oaths, government rituals. So the moment health becomes a question mark, people instinctively start rehearsing the transition in their heads. That's why one unverified screenshot can trigger a national mood shift. And that mood shift is where the real story lives. The BBC switch myth, and why it won't die. People love saying, the BBC changed into black ties, so it must be real. And sure, broadcasters have internal plans for major national events. That's normal. But here's the problem. Once the public learns broadcasters prepare for royal death, preparation becomes proof in the rumor economy. A presenter speaks more seriously than usual. Proof? A lower third graphic looks too ready. Proof. A studio camera angle feels different. Proof. It becomes a self-feeding loop. The more professional the coverage is, the more confirmed it looks, even if the original claim is still unverified, and rumors exploit that. They're designed to trigger the most dramatic interpretation of routine preparedness, but that wasn't the whole trap, because the next layer isn't about TV at all. It's about your brain. Why you feel compelled to believe it. There's a specific emotional cocktail. That royal rumors hit: a familiar institution plus uncertainty plus time pressure. Uncertainty makes you search. Time pressure makes you share. And the royal family is the perfect target because the public has been trained by decades of real history that shocking announcements can happen fast. That privacy can be tight, and that protocol is relentless. So when you see palace statement plus an exact timestamp like 4:47 a.m., your brain treats it like an alarm bell, even if you don't want to believe it. Part of you thinks, what if this is one of those moments? And once you feel that, you're already halfway into the rumor's grip. Which raises a dangerous question. If the internet can make millions believe a fake statement, what happens when the real statement finally arrives? That's when everything gets messy. The instant king problem. Grief doesn't get a vote when a monarch dies. The successor becomes monarch immediately, and the accession council follows to proclaim it. That structure is meant to protect stability. But emotionally, it creates a brutal reality. The public is allowed to mourn, but the state has to move. So if we're talking about a future transition to William, the pressure isn't just ceremonial. It's psychological. Because one moment he's a son, the next moment he's the symbol people will blame, praise, and project onto. And that's why the most powerful stories during a transition aren't always the official ones. They're the tiny, human ones, because they're the only parts that feel real when everything else becomes scripted. Like the first time he has to refer to his father as the late king, or the first time someone calls him Your Majesty and it lands wrong in the room, or the first time his kids realize their lives just got rearranged without anyone asking them. And that leads to the next ingredient the internet always adds to the mix: family tension. The Harry factor. Why? It becomes headline fuel no matter what, even if everyone behaves perfectly. Even if every conversation is private and respectful, the story will still get framed as a scoreboard. Who arrived first? Who stood where? Who looked at whom? Who got invited to what? This is where you have to be disciplined, because speculation will flood in. You'll see posts that claim sources say someone was frozen out, someone refused a meeting, someone demanded conditions, and sometimes the truth will be boring: scheduling, security, protocol. But boring doesn't trend. So rumor accounts will turn every neutral detail into a plot twist, because plot twists get clicks. That doesn't mean there's never tension. It means tension is easy to exaggerate when the public already expects it. And the more the public expects it, the more every camera frame gets interpreted as evidence. Then, like clockwork, the focus shifts, not to grief, not to duty, to money. The moment everyone suddenly cares about the royal balance sheet during calm periods, most people don't wake up thinking about royal funding. During a transition, suddenly everyone becomes an accountant. The sovereign grant, security budgets, property arrangements. These topics surge because they feel like the real story beneath the symbolism, and recent reporting and official briefings have highlighted that the sovereign grant has been at the center of public discussion, including the increase to £132.1 million for 2025-26, with wider debate about what the public should fund and how transparent the institution should be. So, a health scare becomes a pressure test, because the question isn't just who's next. It's what does the monarchy owe the public now? And right behind money comes something even sharper: trust. The trust problem. The monarchy's biggest enemy isn't scandal, it's a lot of people think the monarchy's biggest threat is one major scandal. But a single scandal is survivable. The real danger is exhaustion. Exhaustion from constant rumor cycles. Exhaustion from half-answers. Exhaustion from feeling like the institution speaks in riddles and expects people to accept it. That's why stories linked to figures like Andrew and broader questions about accountability keep resurfacing and shaping public mood even when the day's headline is supposed to be about something else. Because transitions don't erase old questions, they amplify them, and that's why the next reign, whenever it begins, won't be judged only on pageantry. It'll be judged on whether it can make people feel like the monarchy is still connected to real life. Which brings us to something you can actually use right now: a quick rumor-proof checklist: how to verify royal breaking news in 60 seconds. If you see a viral palace statement, do this before you share it. Check whether major wire services and established outlets are matching the wording. If only one account has it, it's likely fake.